On this episode of Tap Into an Expert, we're doing things a bit different. 1 week before the new FTC rules came into effect this past October, the Desire Company hosted an event entitled Fake Reviews, Real Penalties: How to Keep Your Brand FTC Compliant. The event featured a panel of experts from the brand, retail media, legal, and e-commerce worlds to share insights on how the rules will reshape the industry. The discussion you're about to hear with Ash McMullen, Ryan Diehl, Jim Dudukovich, and moderated by me, Eric Sheinkop, was recorded live during this event. During this live panel discussion episode of Tap Into an Expert, 4 questions from the audience were quite difficult to hear on the original recording. We re-recorded these questions to ensure you could hear them today. Enjoy.
First and foremost, thank you guys for being here. If I can, just have you introduce yourself and what you look after and anything that you would like to share with the group today. Starting with Ash.
All right. Hi, my name's Ash McMullen. I am the head of e-commerce at Advantice Health. We are a private equity-owned CPG portfolio company. We have 6 different brands in the skin health and personal care categories. Some of them might be household names that you recognize, like New Skin Liquid Bandage. We have Carousel Foot Care, which is a very sexy line of products for things that, you may or may not need once in a while. And then Triple Paste Diaper Rash Cream is another one that we have that's a little bit of a disruptor brand in the category. And then Amlactin Therapeutic Body Lotion is another one. So
great. Hey, everyone. I'm Ryan Diehl. I have 20 years of media commerce experience, and 17 of those years were at Best Buy Corporate, where I oversaw affiliate marketing, Best Buy's influencer network, and Tech Insider Network, which is basically product seeding. Today, as of late, I've been an executive advisor for several startup companies in the tech space, in the media space, mostly focusing on media commerce, creator, media network, and also a bit of expert reviews.
Awesome. And Jim.
And there's Jim.
All right. I'm going to try not to talk as much on this panel.
So there's a lot going on. And Jim, thank you very much for the rundown. And it's real. I mean, this is hitting and it's hitting right now. You might wonder, where do these fake reviews come from? So there are tens of thousands of Facebook groups that sell reviews. Fake reviews, 1 or 5 star. And Jim referenced something that Amazon is actually taking action and getting them shut down. But they just pop up overnight, over and over and over. Some of these groups have over 500,000 people in the groups that are willing to write fake reviews, either for free product or for money. So it's very hard to be a good player in the space and compete and have your products rise to the top where they belong to be. Ash, the first conversation that we really had about this, you said, I don't know what I could possibly do about this. Our competitor just popped up out of nowhere. They're not sold in stores, so they don't have the same requirements, because Walgreens, CVS, all of these other stores, they will not carry your product if it's not a quality product. But this product popped up and they put fake people in lab coats to give reviews as though they were doctors. What do you do with the review baiting, the fake doctors? And what's your experience on that?
So this was a very real thing for our business. And this was something that happened with in the foot care category, and Carousel being a market leader. We invest heavily in our clinical studies. We're a #1 doctor recommended brand. And when these, I'll call them no-name brands, pop up and they don't have any organic relevancy, they have no historical sales records that, can help them pop up at the top of search. And they'll do things like take a dark product and variate with that product to benefit from the weight of the reviews of a product that's no longer available, and then put this AI generated content or stock imagery that looks very compelling to a consumer. And you're on a digital shelf. There's a low barrier of entry, and much more so than, yes, the physical shelf, where you have to go through a lot of regulatory processes and a lot of different hurdles. And when a consumer that's used to going to like your pharmacist and asking like, what's going to help me with this issue, and it's something that is more personal, so it lends itself to the e-commerce world. And when you have a product that is more premium priced and then something that's a lower price point and has very compelling content, there's really nothing to say, buy mine instead of this one. And especially if they have, a few thousand reviews that appear to be 5 stars that may not or may not be for that actual product. And so we very quickly noticed this through like market share analysis, and just, our projections weren't what they should have been, or like our actuals weren't hitting our projections. So we did this deep dive and really sat back and we're like, okay, well, we can't really go after them. We have to look at what we can do with our product. And this was it was perfect timing. So it was right around the time that Eric and I met and really learned about what the Desire Code did and thought, okay, like we work with healthcare professionals. We'll take this into our content of our product detail pages and really lean into the efficacy of our products so that when the consumer is comparing the two, there's just more compelling and true content on our product pages. And so that's how we embarked in this, of like updating like our general copy in there as much as regulatory would allow us to. And, went from there, and we worked with a podiatrist, a dermatologist, and also an Olympic athlete who was a runner. And she took on this whole new, Tanya was a great kind of surprise expert for us because she embraced this, being a runner and your feet are in sneakers all day. It's an environment where fungus can grow, and like your like everyone kind of knows, like if you're a runner, like your toenails are not like the loveliest things in the world. But like she really embraced this and is like, if you have foot issues, like you're doing it right. And she made it feel like this badge of honor. So, and it was really, really well timed with the Olympics. And she was Gabby Thomas's track coach, and Gabby Thomas won three gold medals. So we used it across like our product detail pages, our streaming TV ads. We used the different cuts in social. We used stills and, just explaining how to use the product. It was really, really, really great and impactful. So.
Awesome. But it's hard though, for people to stay honest and have the responsibility of staying compliant. The hardest thing to stay compliant in, I think, Ryan, is influencer and UGC. And you ran influencer and UGC content at Best Buy for a long time. How do you think these new rules are going to impact that industry, and how do retailers like a Best Buy or brands themselves, how are they going to be thinking about content moving forward because of these new regulations?
Right. So yes, it is quite the Wild West out there in the influencer space. And so at my time at Best Buy, we really pivoted to working a lot with, we would call them, mid-tier or micro or nano influencers, which are mostly commonly defined as influencers with 500,000 followers and down. And because we thought that they oftentimes would deliver the most authentic content. And that's not to say that, large mega celebrity macro influencers aren't needed by brands, but generally speaking, we saw, and I think other brands do see that, there's higher engagement rates with creators with smaller followings, and oftentimes they're more affordable, and they can do a really good job at driving conversions sometimes. So with that shift, one thing that we really started to keep a close eye on with these influencers is that, and if you think about it, these influencers with smaller followings, they are oftentimes in their earlier stages of being a creator. This is kind of new for them. And also, it may be new for them to work with brands. And so they're kind of learning on the job. So it was really, really up to the brand to, make sure that It's crystal clear about the FTC new rule and what the guidelines are, because, one misdisclosure or one false product claim can be really damaging to and costly for the brand, but also for that creator's brand reputation too. And so it just is really, really important to make sure that they remain genuine in their content, and you have monitoring tools. Jim brought up how you can't buy followers, you can't buy likes, things like that, but especially followers. There are tools out there that can help you monitor that. So if you see a quick spike in that creator's, profile, like in terms of gaining followers, unnaturally quick, that should raise a flag. So, just to answer your kind of follow-up question there, Eric, in terms of, how is that evolving? I mean, we worked with over 10,000 external partners and creators at Best Buy, and that's a lot. You can't monitor all of that. And there's no magic tool out there that can figure out when your product is being mentioned, especially if there's an incentive model behind it. So I just feel that there is kind of there should be and might be an evolution of narrowing partnerships, quality more over quantity. And, a little bit of a plug here. I mean, that's kind of why, Eric, Best Buy and the Desire Company have this great partnership, and that, we just don't have to worry about the type of content that your company is producing. And that's huge. And because you guys are a thought leader in the space, hence this great event here.
Thank you very much for that plug. And Jim, I mean, the idea with this content being completely uncontrollable, like there's no way that you can monitor this much content in the review and the actual video space. However, working with influencers is a really cheap and expensive way to get the content that you need. And Amazon coming out and just saying you need 4 videos per product. Need to have them. It's going to reduce returns by 40%. Like, that sounds amazing. And today, I just want to make sure they are not here before I say anything. But today I was at an event at Shop Talk, and they announced a new product that allows you to scrape the internet for any videos that mention your brand so that you could put them on your page. And I can't think of a worse experience for consumers. If, like, I go to a page, I just want information about it. I don't want to watch 10 hours of random UGC content. You turn every single product page into YouTube. So beyond the written, how do people move forward in this space? Young brands who need content, who don't have the money for television ads or all of these things, what options, how would they approach getting content, getting reviews in a moral way?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I think number one is starting from the right place. I think you'll have some challenger brands who, they may want to start from the place of, I'm going way over the line until somebody pulls me back. And, not exactly the best foundation on which to build a business model. But start from the right place. We're not trying to do anything wrong, right? And, I'm going to qualify the whole presentation because it ended up being a lot of doom and gloom stuff. Most of that stuff is about the bad guys. I'm hoping it's not about any of you in this room. The concern is, will you get swept up with the bad guys because you're doing things that maybe you're not paying enough attention to, or you didn't mean to do something wrong, but you did. And so I think starting from a place of wanting authentic content, and I'm skipping a little bit, but to what was said before about how do you monitor all of this stuff? And now we're talking about the bigger ones. That was such a concern throughout the entire legal and advertising community. And the FTC finally came out in the most recent version of the endorsement guides and basically said, we're not going to hold you responsible for everything, but you got to do something. You've got to keep an eye on things. You got to have some sort of protocols in place to start from the right place, to monitor and to take corrective action when mistakes are made. And if we come knocking and you've got something that passes the eye test to us, then, we're going to exercise a little bit of latitude there. But to the smaller companies, that's why I'm a lawyer, not a marketer. I think the reason I really wanted to get up here and talk about all of that stuff is so that you know about it. Because the first the first step to solving a problem is knowing what the problem is. And the problem is there are now real teeth, in the FTC's arsenal. And you need to understand where those tripwires are. And if you find, if someone comes into your office and goes, hey, our employees are our greatest advocates. We want to get them out there posting reviews. Can we do that? Like, well, it depends. It's not that you can't have your employees post reviews, but they got to be transparent and those reviews got to be real. And if all of a sudden your reviews on Amazon spike and it turns out it's all from your own employees, you better be able to demonstrate that those were real reviews. The employees really do think those things about your product. They really tried them. They make disclosures that they work for you in the body of the review. Now, whether anyone will ever notice those disclosures because the star rating goes up and people don't go through the database list. So it's just about understanding where the legal tripwires are, finding a way to achieve your marketing mission, which is your marketing mission to, treat it and beat it. I'm going to make as much money as I can and get out of here before I get sued. Or is it, I want to build real products and a real connection to consumers and create adoption and traction and stickiness and repeat.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because the FTC only gets involved when things have gotten completely out of control from self-regulation. Like, McDonald's and Coca-Cola being told, hey, you guys can't really market to children anymore. And they're like, okay, we got it. We'll take it from here.
Hashtag client.
Yes.
So
we'll take it from here. And there's nobody in this space to do it because it's such a fragmented space. There are so many people out here. So whose accountability is it? When you are dealing with a new vendor, when you're dealing with reviews, when you're dealing with somebody who's going to make content for you, whose responsibility does it fall under? Does it fall under yours to educate every single, and I will say, like, if you don't mind me calling it out, but Bosch and Loam, like, we had to get certified to be able to do any work with them, to say, like, I understand the legal restrictions that we have here. I understand how to talk about your brand and what I can't say and what I can say. And I think that's really important, but how far does it go in the conversation? And who's accountable for the reviews from your perspective at the end of the day?
So there's a lot in there to kind of unpack because it's not just one person. Right. There's I'm involved in that. Our brand directors are involved. Our regulatory team is involved. There's multiple different touch points that we have to consider. And then our agencies are a part of that as well. They're a huge part of it, but the framework and the detail that goes into that brief to educate our agency and really get the best outcome out of that. Because at the end of the day, we're continuously optimizing our briefing process and how we do that internally because it's, things are ever changing, ever dynamic. I mean, we learn that just from doing business on Amazon, every day practically. So there's that piece, but there's also, shelf life of things is very short and we need to constantly be refreshing, reinventing, and recreating. And the process needs to also become more efficient as we keep doing that. So when we learn these new things that okay, this revision, there was an extra step in there. We know how to cut that out next time. We know how to, just tweak it a little bit to speed it up and just make the whole process more efficient so everyone can just keep working. And, then if we have a disruption we need to deal with, we can more easily deal with it. And we're not stuck just, going back and forth on revisions because regulatory is we really can't say it like that. There needs to be a word in between that. And, so it's really not to overuse cross functionality, but it really is it's a team that, is comprised of different internal teams that we're all working toward the same goal. So,
yeah. And I mean, it's a beautiful thing if the brand does it themselves and then it gets distributed across platforms. But Ryan, with a platform, a market like Best Buy, where you're getting content every day from thousands of vendors, tens of thousands of vendors. How do you guys think about that, manage that, regulate that, and ultimately how and who's responsible?
Right. I mean, I do feel very fortunate. I had some great in-house legal counsel at Best Buy who really explained in layman terms like the do's and don'ts when FTC guidelines came out. And that was great. So I feel like a great student there. But, it isn't the lawyers who are executing the marketing campaigns. They're not handling customer reviews on the site, nor are they running site operations. And so I feel that, just to echo what Ash said, you certainly need to have anyone who is in the review ecosystem on the brand side and the extension of their agency partners be very, very well trained on things. And I think that the leaders in each of those departments need to be the role models in terms of, making sure that first they know the rules, and then also they're making sure that their teams are following those rules and understand the severity. And Jim, you'll probably think I'm like the teacher's pet right now because you literally had that in that one of your final slides. But we literally I had my team do an audit as much as time allowed for them to look at their work, document that work when they do spot check reviews, both on-site and off-site. And a couple folks on my team got gold stars and became, the lawyers' favorites because
two stars,
gold 2 stars, because they would go proactively back to legal and say, look how on top of this we are. And that gave them a lot of assurance. And so, that was before I saw that slide too. So that was, I do feel that I was just really fortunate to have a legal counsel that really, really directed us well. But at the end of the day, it's absolutely everyone, but there needs to be examples to be set.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think what's so interesting about it is, influencers were all the rage. And now we found out over the past 5 years that engagement has declined so much that it's less than 1%. 1% of engagement from influencer posts. So obviously then you start going to micro influencers and giving them what to communicate out there. But at the end of the day, it's all the same thing. It's broadcast, right? It's a billboard or it's a television commercial or it's influencer, it's a nano influencer, whatever it might be, but it's your product, it's your brand, it's your responsibility, which makes it very hard to navigate this industry. We are running low on time, so I'm going to open it up to questions for the panelists. Yes, Susan.
Question from Susan. So I have a question for you, Jim, because you had mentioned retailers that are operating marketplaces. Retail e-commerce platforms kind of don't own the responsibility, but as retail media ads increase and they're now developing their own retail influencers and having manufacturers opt in to their programs, but we don't vet or know who those influencers are. So is the onus becoming more on retailers, or is it moving so fast that it's still on the manufacturer or brand?
I think the answer is if you were to read the 162 pages that are in the actual published rule, well, the rule is very short, but then there's a ton of commentary explaining it, supporting it, defending it, providing proof as to what it means. And there's a lot of discussion in there, and I can actually send you some of it if you'd like afterward, where they talk about that and where they went to great pains to try to say, hey, if all you're doing is hosting reviews. Now, remember, reviews are just reviews, part of the website where consumers upload stuff versus testimonial stuff, other stuff that we don't want to throw you in to the lion's den with the bad actors. If you're not playing a bad role, you don't know that bad stuff's happening. You don't know that, fake material is being uploaded. You're not encouraging it. You're not incentivizing it. You're going to stay out of harm's way. But, if a platform or a retailer starts looking for ways to grab more advertising dollars or attract more, brands to the platform by offering some perks, then I think you're in the mix.
Any other questions right now? Yes, Jim.
Question from Jim in the audience. For anyone on the panel, you mentioned you don't want to be in league with bad actors, so to speak. Ryan, you mentioned how you had your team evaluate sites to see what the results were. Is that how you see this playing out? Because this is so important for brands, for ad agencies, for e-commerce sites, is that how you see it playing out and the information being disseminated? And the second question I have is, Because there are so many brands based in America that are multinational, does this put us ahead of or behind other countries, maybe Canada, Australia, in terms of this kind of monitoring and this kind of enforcement?
Do you want to start with the international?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was just at the National Advertising Division's annual meeting, and that's the Council of Better Business Bureau's self-regulatory body, and they had the International Council of Advertising Self-Regulation in town, and we're talking about a lot of this stuff. On the international level, I think there are things about America that are very different from, say, the European continent. Okay, they pay higher taxes there, they get universal health care, they get all those things. The government plays a much bigger role, but from a consumer protection standpoint, I don't think it's quite as strong. Here in America is where we're so litigious between competitors, okay, in the plaintiff's bar. There's so many lawsuits here. You don't see that over there. When you're talking about the government and the consumer protection regulation, you'll have to give me metrics on what's ahead or behind. But I do think we're different. I think that, I think that we right now, the current makeup of this commission and what it's doing, as Eric mentioned, they dropped a new rule today. It's been in the works for a while. 2 weeks ago at the NAD conference, Commissioner Holyoke said she had no comment on if or when this rule it's the click to cancel rule on auto renewing subscriptions, whether it would ever be issued. 2 weeks later, here it is. They dropped it this morning. It'll be effective in 180 days from publication. But the point is, we've got two commissioners who are losing their minds over how active and aggressive the other three commissioners are being with promulgating rules, taking actions, vocalizing displeasure with certain tactics in the marketplace. So it could shift. It could shift. At the beginning of next year, it's possible the FTC might disappear.
Yeah, in my experience, on the brand side, we were so aligned that we leveraged our internal e-learning tool, which is how to teach the field and just, educate people on anything, code of ethics. We kind of flipped that e-learning tool on its head in a way and turned that into a training module that we then for FTC, and you had a test at the end, and we would, distribute that to agency partners and to literally everyone who touches. This was kind of more around, influencers, and had everyone, and we recorded of who we were able to see who, passed the test, so to speak. Now that's from a resource heavy brand, but I do feel that the FTC will likely go back to the brand. They seem like they are among the biggest targets in that ecosystem. And so it does just feel like the heat is on the brand. And so then you need to then, as a brand, put that heat on your partners. And maybe that is a key thing that when you are maybe doing an RFP, the next round, right? That is a key component of who you choose to move forward with, because it's that severe nowadays.
That's what we do. We've incorporated that into our vetting process. So if we are putting out an RFP, in those initial meetings to get from round one to, initial to even into round one, there's a whole piece of knowledge that you have to provide. How do you handle this, especially if it's influencer sourcing and working with different influencers in the briefing process. It's different examples of how you've engaged with this, how you've helped regulate the influencer for different brands, but also how if you've had an experience where you've corrected something and you've noticed something and you have you taken corrective action on it? And it's very interesting because some are very, very familiar with it. And it's very easy to identify those who have really never opened the link on, from the Google search. And it's fascinating to see both sides of the scale.
So putting your customer hat on real fast, brands are always told you need more, you need more, you need more. It would be in our interest to say you need new content every 3 months, which is what you hear. That's what people say out there. We have videos that have been live for 4 years that are still as effective as the day they came out. So how do you think about your customer versus the algorithm and doing what you need to do to appease the algorithm master, or what's best for your shopper.
You kind of say it like with the audience and the customer. So when I'll use Carousel again as an example with our fungal nail patch, like we have 3 very specific and differentiated expert voices that talk about these products. And when we're putting together a streaming TV campaign or a Prime Video ad campaign, we're not just going to use one spot and blanket it to an entire category of shoppers. Every shopper is different. So we're going to use those different voices and create different audiences that each of those experts are going to speak to. So because you're not the same person in every single social gathering that you go to, just like our brand is not speaking to everyone. It's going to speak to like specific people. And now, shoppers crave that. Like consumers they don't want to be considered part of the mass of the shopper pool. They want that personal connection. And so using, different data and different tools to like build those audiences that you are going to speak to. So you do minimize waste, and then your finance team, is happy with you, and then you get more funding for new content. So there's that piece of it too. But understanding who those different audiences are and speaking to them through these different experts and what will appeal to them. So you can essentially use the same creative for years to come. You just may switch the audience that you use that creative with.
Yeah, very interesting. All right, I know we are running tight on time. So Ash, Ryan, Jim, thank you very much for being here.